conveyancing and notarial work. Um, for those of you who don't know what conveyancing and notarial work is, conveyancing attorneys do a lot of things actually. We do, but mainly what we focus on is property transfers. So anytime any property needs to be transferred, it can be your normal freestanding houses, it can be a sectional title, it can be a farm, whatever it is, it has to go through a conveyancer because it has to go to the deeds office. So conveyancers practice in that way. We also do, conveyancers also attend to bond registrations as well as bond cancellations, along with a variety of other things that we attend to under our scope, which only a conveyancer can attend to. A notary public, on the other hand, will attend to registration of also certain documents in the deeds office, but these documents are slightly different. So there's notarial bonds, which is different to your normal mortgage bonds, and a notarial bond can only be done and registered by a notary public. Notary publics will also attend to your registering of antenuptial contracts and lease agreements, your servitudes. Notary publics are also your authority, for lack of a better word, on certification of documents or authenticating documents rather. So that's more or less what in a very brief way what a conveyancer and a notary public does. It is a very niche aspect of law. It is very interesting and very enjoyable. If I may say so myself, I am very much enjoying practice. Um, the studying of this exam is something else, though. To be an admitted conveyancer and an admitted notary public, you have to be an admitted attorney. So if you are not a practicing attorney, you cannot be a practicing conveyancer or notary public. You can write all the exams at the same time. People are under the impression that you must write your board exams, you must get admitted as an attorney, and only after then you can do your conveyancing. That's not true. That's not the case at all. You can choose to write all your board exams, your conveyancing exam, and your notary exam all at the same time. And you can do your admission for all three at the same time. It's just the way you structure your admission then would be that your attorney admission would come first because you have to be admitted as an attorney to be able to be admitted as a conveyancer and notary public. Um, the transfer procedure, I'm just elaborating on what I see is on your guys' agenda today. But if you guys have anything you want to know or anything that's unclear, like I'm a very discussion kind of person. So if you want to join in at any point, please don't hesitate. But I'm just going to go follow the agenda that Liz has set out as a guide, more or less, right? So the transfer procedure, um, as a conveyancer, we are just like attorneys, we are creatures of instruction. So your instruction will stem from the offer to purchase that is signed between the seller and the purchaser. That offer to purchase is your complete guide as to how you handle that transaction. So it starts off with that, with your offer to purchase. You need to make sure as a conveyancer you have read through that offer to purchase, you understand that offer to purchase, and you exercise what needs to be exercised based on that offer to purchase. The next step in that would be that you need to FICA your clients, which is you need to make sure that you can verify and identify your clients, right? So there's certain basic requirements, certain basic documents in that you would need during your FICA process. It does differ depending on who the parties are to the transaction. Your FICA documents for an individual versus your FICA documents for a company is different. It's not the same. There's some similarities, but obviously because it's different types of parties, it will be different documents that's required. So you have your offer to purchase, you have your FICA. The next thing in your transfer process is you would need to then check the property that you are transferring. You need to know what property is it. Is it an off? Is it a farm? Is it a sectional title? Is it an agricultural holding? There's different types of properties that you get as well. So you need to see what exactly are you transferring, because that in itself will then give you a guide as to what's the next step. If it's one of your common transfers, of an earth or sectional title or even a farm, your first thing that you need to check on your deed search, because obviously you have to do a deed search so you can get information about the property, is there a bond registered over the property? Because you cannot transfer a property if there is a bond registered over it, because that bond means that the person whose name is on the title deed is not the true owner in the sense, right? Because they don't even have their title deed in their possession, right? The bondholder, which is the bank, or it could be a private company, would have the title deed in their possession. So you need to make sure you find out, is there a bond over the property? If there is, you need to get the details of the bond, such as the bond account number and who the bank is or who the private company is, and contact them to let them know that, listen, there's a sale, there's an offer to purchase that has been signed, and so we need to cancel your bond. They will in turn tell you, okay, this is what's outstanding on the bond. X amount is outstanding. You need to pay this X amount to us for us to be able to cancel the bond, right? And then obviously they'll appoint attorneys on their side. So the bank usually have panels of attorneys on their bond registration panel and their bond cancellation panel. So they'll allocate the matter to someone from their bond cancellation panel, and they also in turn have costs involved. So in a transfer, people don't realize there's a lot of costs that are there. People think you only pay one attorney and that's it. No, that's not the case. If there is a bond registered over the property, the seller must pay the bond cancellation costs because that's his bond. So he's liable to pay the cancellation costs for that. If the purchaser is registering a bond over the property, the purchaser must pay the bond registration attorney's costs, right? And for the transferring attorney, without whom the whole transfer can't take place, the transferring attorney's cost is payable by the purchaser. But even though it's payable by the purchaser, it is the seller who chooses the conveyancer, not the purchaser, right? The seller is the one who has the right to choose who they want must handle the whole conveyancing process. And if the purchaser is not happy with it, they can discuss with the seller, but once that offer to purchase is signed, they are bound to pay the cost of the transferring attorneys. They can question and query the costs, yes, but they can't get out of paying those costs, right? Okay, so I've explained now about the whole bond cancellation figures. Once you're in the process of getting bond cancellation figures from your BC attorneys, you at the same time now need to apply for transfer duty receipt or exemption certificate, or as well as your rates clearance certificate. So there's certain basic documents that need to be lodged when doing a transfer. So like I said, you cannot do a transfer if there is a bond registered over the property. That bond must be cancelled. You cannot do a transfer unless SARS has authorized that transfer to go through, meaning SARS has issued either a transfer duty receipt or a transfer duty exemption. You cannot do a transfer until the rates on that property have been paid up in advance, not paid up to date, paid up in advance, right? And the reason why these things are important is because you have to lodge these documents at the deeds office. If you don't have a transfer duty receipt or transfer duty exemption certificate, you will get rejected. If you do not have a rates clearance certificate, you will get rejected. Or if you do have a rates clearance certificate and it has expired, you will get rejected, right? So these are the basic then steps that you need to follow for you. You need to apply on SARS, you need to apply for your rates clearance figures, you need to make sure you get clients to sign your transfer documents. Clients have to sign transfer documents because we need further documents to authorize us going ahead with the transfer. One of the most important ones being the seller must sign something called a power of attorney. That power of attorney allows us as the conveyancers, where the seller is giving us power of attorney to register this for him. Because technically, if the seller should so wish, he can appear himself in front of a registrar to execute. But that was back in the days. It doesn't happen anymore, right? But he has to nominate a conveyancer to do that because only conveyancers appear in front of a registrar to execute a deed. When I say execute, I mean that You need to appear before the registrar and confirm that everything's in order. You need to sign off on that document, and the registrar then countersigns and stamps it. Once that happens, the process is technically done because the new property will have registered in your name, right? But when all of this is happening, remember I explained you have to get bond cancellation figures. If the purchase is registered in a bond, there's a bond attorney involved. All of us have to work together. Your bond cancellation attorney, your bond registration attorney, your conveyancing attorney, all have to work together because we all have to lodge simultaneously at the same time. We can't have the bond attorney registering a bond over a property that isn't in their client's name, right? So everything has to happen at the same time. As the conveyancer, is the one handling the transfer process, you have a lot more responsibility on your hand because you are literally the middleman liaising between the two. You also liaise between the bond cancellation attorney and the seller because the seller is technically your client also. So you're going to be the middleman throughout it all, and you have to make sure you manage the entire transaction by yourself, right? And you have to be aware of many things. Like you have to know that you are on certain timelines, right? If an offer to purchase is signed and after 6 months, 6 months pass and you have not loaded that offer to purchase on SARS, that purchaser and seller will be facing penalties, right? So you need to work quickly. If you have a rates clearance certificate issued and you do not register the property within 2 months from that date of certificate being issued, your certificate expires and you have to go through that whole process of getting clearance figures again. And I don't think I need to elaborate on how difficult it is dealing with municipalities in our country. So that is not something you want to experience where your certificate expires and everybody else is ready, but now you're not ready because you have to get a new figures and pay, and it's just an entire mission. So you have to be aware of many timelines that are all running at the same time, and you have to learn how to manage all of that. When it comes, so what I explained now is like your basic transfer process, right? When you have a sectional title involved, it's more or less along the exact same lines, but yep, apart from rates clearance figures, you also need to get levy clearance figures, right? When you are part of or owning part of a sectional title, you are living kind of like in a community, right? It's community living, and you have to pay levies. Those levies of yours will cover different things in the complex that you are living in. And there will be a body corporate, or the body corporate will have appointed a managing agent, right? Those are the people we then contact to again obtain levy clearance figures. All of this is figures that are obtained in advance. When I say that, I mean that if I contact COJ today to say I need rates clearance figures on of 111 Eldorado Park, right? So if I'm telling them I need rates clearance figures for 111 Eldorado Park, they're going to issue me rates clearance figures for, we are currently in July, so they'll do July, August, September, October. So whoever the seller is, that seller has to pay a rates clearance figure 4 months in advance, right? Apart from 4 months in advance, if there's any outstanding balance, that also needs to get paid, right? They will not issue a clearance certificate until City of Joburg or Itswane or Mohale City or City of Polokwane, whichever the municipality is, none of them will issue you a certificate until you are paid up in full, right? There is something called Section 118, but there is a lot more. That's like a whole separate topic for discussion, but that there is another option for when your rates are way too high and you can't afford to pay it right now, you have a Section 118 at your disposal, but it's not an easy process to use, right? Okay, so I've kind of covered now your transfer procedure, I've included sectional titles. Um, for mortgage bonds, this is when you obviously know you cannot pay a house in cash. And so you're going to approach a bank or a financial institution or a financial company to offer you a loan of sorts, right? When you do that, you are giving them a right over your property. You are giving them rights to your property, right? Because technically the property may be in your name, but they have a right over it. I've done mortgage bonds, and they're quite easy, they're quite simple, but people don't realize the impact of bonds, right? You could, the minute you start defaulting on a payment, you could lose your house in an instant. So when you are taking out a bond, there's so many things that you need to take into consideration. You need to look at what can you manage, what can you afford, what happens when the interest rate goes up. All of these things are going to affect you and impact you, right? The time, the duration of your bond, the length of your bond, all of those things are massive factors that you must take into account before you rush into registering a mortgage bond over your property, right? But registering a mortgage bond is simple. You just need to sign. You need to have a loan agreement signed. You need to have a power of attorney signed, and that is all you submit at the deeds office with the title deed, right? The conveyancing exams, guys. They are two papers that you write. There's a paper one and a paper two. From the by when I wrote the exam to now, there's a lot of things that have changed. So from what I understand now, there's still two papers, but the papers are now a week apart. Instead of being on the same day, they are now 1 week apart. Um, Paper one is your theory, and I think it's only a 2 hour paper. Paper two is your drafting paper, and I think that's, gosh, is it 3.5 or 4 hours, somewhere around there, right? Your drafting paper is very long. The exams are challenging, I would say. I don't know if you guys are aware of what the pass rates have been. Um, I don't believe conveyancing is hard to study. I don't think so at all. I think the studying and understanding of conveyancing is straightforward and it's simple. Um, but I think the con not content, the amount of content that you need to cover is a lot. Like it's really, really a lot. And I think that's what makes the exam tough, is people struggle to cover that, like go through all the content. Okay, I'm just seeing there's a question in the chat. Good evening, Libiba. I have a question. I learned about notarial bonds last year, but I didn't understand what those were in comparison to mortgage bonds. Okay, so the easiest way for me to explain this is that um, a notarial bond is more so for, I want to say, movables, but it's you get again, you get different types of notarial bonds. You get general notarial bonds, and then you get special notarial bonds, right? So general notarial bond will be, okay, I'm going to bond all the cars I have in my fleet, right? I own a car company. I'm bonding all my assets in my company, right? Then a special one is when you're going to specify, okay, I'm going to bond this truck and this bus and this desk and this chair. That's what it is, right? So mortgage bonds is over immovable property and notarial is movables, right? I hope that answers your question and helps you out over there. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask. There's another one. What are some common issues that could arise during the conveyancing process? Okay, there's a lot, guys. There's a lot. I know people have the opinion, oh, conveyancing is such an easy field and it's the easy way out, and conveyancers are not real practicing attorneys. Guys, I have practiced in criminal law, I have practiced in labor law, I have practiced in third party litigation, medical negligence, insurance litigation. I've done some corporate work as well. Being a conveyancer is hard. It is very hard. There's a lot of issues that can arise because you are dealing with, number one, municipalities that are so unpredictable, that can be so difficult to work with, that you will chase after for months, and people will gun you down because they think you are delaying the process. Meanwhile, it's not you. Your hands are tied. It's the municipality. Issues that arise also is when There are conditions in the sale, such as making the sale, the offer to purchase, subject to bonds, and then your purchasers not getting bond approval, but they have paid a deposit. Now, technically, they need to forfeit that deposit to the seller. Nobody wants to lose money. So, in that, you do sometimes have battles that arise, and there's a lot of people management that you do as well, because you also have to get people to give you documents, you have to get people to come and sign documents, you have to get people to pay you things. It's hard if you are in this field already, not necessarily conveyancing. If you are in the legal field, then I'm quite sure you'll understand that getting people to pay is one of the hardest things in this field.
That is
Everybody just
true.
wants Everybody just thinks lawyers must work for free and we must live on love and fresh air. That is also a very big challenge that comes into play. Um, what other common issues are there? You can sometimes face issues on SaaS. SaaS can be quite difficult. There's like your standard way of loading the transaction on SaaS, and then there's standard documents that you load on SaaS. But again, depending on the transaction, SaaS could pose a number of queries. They could want a number of different documents, and then it's not documents that you would have on hand. It's documents you would need to either get from the seller or the purchaser. So therein you could find an issue in whether or not they have the document or not. I think there is another question. Another student asked a question on how to approach the conveyancing statement of account. Okay, so I will say, guys, the statement of account when you are studying versus the statement of account when you are actually practicing is very different. So I'm not sure for which one you are asking, right? If you're asking for when you are studying, then the best way I can try, or the best way I think I can try and help you is think about it in a debit and credit fashion, right? Think about what money is coming in and what money is going out, right? So don't even write debit and credit. Draw your line and say money in, money out, right? And use it in that way for you to be able to approach your statement of account, because that's what your statement of account is. You need to account for any monies that have come into your account and what monies have left your account for the specific transaction. That's literally what your statement of account is. So if debit and credit seem like overwhelming words, which I know even during board exams, when people are writing the bookkeeping exam, people get very overwhelmed when hearing those things, especially if you haven't done accounting in school or campus and you're hearing it for the first time when you're studying for bookkeeping. It's like, how must I know what this is? Don't panic, guys. It's literally just what money is coming in and what money is going out. That's all it is. So just draw your table, put your heading, money coming in, money going out, and write it down and be like, okay, my purchase price has to come into my account, but it has to also go out to the seller, right? Because remember, purchaser will give it to you keep it in your account, and then you give it to seller, right? The one thing I will mention with purchase prices is when money does get deposited into a conveyancing attorney's trust account, we give clients the option, which more often than not they do take the option of investing their money, right? We then put that money into an investment account, and that money will stay in that investment account and accumulate interest until the day of registration. The day the matter registers, we click a button and that money gets released, right? The only time clients don't have an option and we have to invest it, like we can't give them an option to say, please don't invest my money, is when we need to issue a guarantee for the bond cancellation. Because remember, no monies should pass hands until the transfer has registered, right? There are instances where sellers and purchasers pay each other directly, and that is fine, that is allowed, that is acceptable. But the responsibility on you as a conveyancer is to indemnify yourself. So you must make sure that either that offer to purchase contains a clause to indemnify you, or you make them sign an addendum to indemnify you from securing that purchase price, because that's one of your jobs as a conveyancer, is to secure the purchase price, right? So if a client is depositing the purchase price into my account and the seller has a bond that needs to be cancelled, we have to issue something called a guarantee. Because remember, I can't if the bond cancellation amount is 50,000 rand and the purchase price is 100,000 rand, I cannot give that bond cancellation attorney the 50,000 rand until the property registers. Until the day of registration, I cannot release it. So what we do to secure the bond cancellation attorney or give them safety, if I could use that word, for just to help you guys understand better, is I issue a guarantee. That guarantee freezes the money in our account, in the sense that it will stay there and accumulate interest, yes, but it can only be released to who the guarantee is issued to, or who the guarantee is in favor of, right? So the day that the matter registered, again, we press one button and that guarantee releases the investment into the bond cancellation attorney's account. Obviously, it will only be to the 50,000 rand. The balance 50,000 rand purchase price will stay in our account. It will, not in our account, it will be in the investment account. The day the guarantee is released, the other 50,000 rand is also released with the interest into our trust account, right? And what happens there is, let's just say on a 100,000 rand purchase price, we've accrued 10,000 rand interest. Then 100,000 rand purchase price is for the seller, right? 50,000 went to his bond cancellation. 50,000 rand goes to the seller himself. That 10,000 rand interest is the purchaser's. That 10,000 rand interest has to be paid over to the purchaser. Okay. I hope I helped you with the conveyancing statement of account. There's another question here. What are some common mistakes that one can make when taking out a mortgage loan, and how can they avoid them? Okay, that's not very much a conveyancing question. That's more like a life question. Um, Honestly, my first advice will always be, if you can avoid a bond, right? Because when you take out a bond, the first 5 to 7 years, you are paying interest, right? And then only you start paying off your property. That's how much of interest is made on a bond. So I would say, if you can avoid a bond, by all means, avoid the bond, avoid the mortgage loan. But mistakes would be not planning or considering for um, spikes in interest rates, not planning for the rainy days when something happens and you can't afford to pay your bond. Like all of those things, it's real life things that you have to take into consideration. So I would say something that I have learned is, if you are going to take out a bond, and let's just say you are taking out a bond for 10,000 rand a month, right? You need to try and make sure that you at least can pay 12,000 rand a month, or 13,000 rand a month, or whatever it is. That little, even if you push 500 rand extra a month into your bond, it brings it down, and it brings the repayment down massively. If you put 1,000 rand extra into your bond, it brings your repayment down so much, guys. Like, that's a massive thing that I don't think a lot of people know, but that little bit extra that you can pump into your bond will make a world of a difference to you. Okay, I hope that was sufficiently answered. Um, let me just see what's the next thing here. Okay, yeah, the conveyancing exams. I wanted to elaborate still a little bit on that. So as I explained, there's 2 exams, right? Paper 1 is your theory and paper 2 is your drafting. Um, your theory is more so based on all the different acts. Like, you think conveyancing is just, oh my God, you think you only need to know 2 legislations for conveyancing. That is the furthest thing from the truth. You need to know so many other acts. There's so many acts that come into play and that affect you in conveyancing. I can't even go into it at the moment because it's just that much. But when you do study conveyancing, you will come across it and you will see, right? There's a lot that you have to learn and know about different other acts, legislations, for your conveyancing, right? So paper 1 is mostly your theory on how transfers are done, on like certain things like if it's a farm and if it's divided, then how does Like you'll have to then know how does the Subdivision of Agricultural Land Act affect it and all of those things, right? Paper two, your drafting paper, which I know I told you guys, I think it's 3.5 or 4 hours, like somewhere close to that time zone or time period. And I know that that seems so long, and I know it must sound so daunting to you guys that how must I sit there and write for 3.5 or 4 hours or whatever it is? I will say that the the drafting exam is the one that I think is not bad, because what people don't necessarily know is that in your drafting exam, you are given the ACT booklet. So you are given, oh, I don't have it with me at home, it's at the office, but there's a deeds registries act and a sectional titles schemes act, right? And it's in one booklet, both of those, and it has all, it's literally a legislation. So it has all your sections, it has all your regulations, but it also has your forms. Your forms give you an indication of how your drafting needs to look. So I'll be very honest, like I'm a very work smart, not hard person. Like I'll work hard when I need to, but if you can work smart, it makes the working hard easier, right? And I made sure that I got a copy of that ACT booklet ahead of time, and I learned that booklet. I learned that booklet, not learned it off by heart, but I learned to know where to find what. So then I'm like, it will save you so much of time, because all your drafting is in that booklet. You don't need to memorize it. You just need to know where to go and find it in that booklet. Um, I will say that I didn't do that all by myself. I attended classes, and the person whose class I attended helped me greatly. So I had no experience in conveyancing at all. And I attended Advocate Audrey Guangua's classes. And this was obviously quite a good few years ago, but she was truly the best. I went to her, I think it's 5 years ago now, in 2019. And
She is still the best even now.
yeah, she is. I still join her classes, like I'm still one of her candidates that will come on, and like I'll share a little bit with her class, or, just give them some words of motivation or reassure them that they are truly with the right person. If you guys don't know who she is the head registrar at Pretoria Deeds Office. So if there's anybody that knows their work, it's Audrey. And I will say, Audrey teaches you conveyancing in an unconventional manner, but it is so effective. It is so effective. Like, I truly will say that I owe my passing to her and to her classes. Like that's what helped me greatly. So I would motivate attending her classes. And you don't need to buy notes from people necessarily. If you would like to, you can, but please make sure you are buying the correct notes. You guys all know about copyright law and infringement law and all of that, that you don't want to get involved in that whole pool of things. But the notes that Audrey herself makes or gives is really good. And it's gonna sound so weird for me saying that, but it is good because we made those notes. Like myself and the other people that were studying at the same time as me in her classes, we created those notes based solely on everything Audrey taught us. And we obviously gave it to her first for her to check and proofread and fix up. And those are like the notes that she uses to give her students. And it's amazing. Like those notes are really, really good. So if you do have an intention to study, I would definitely like not push, but I would definitely endorse her classes because it really helped me greatly. She's the one who showed me how to use that ACT booklet, where the drafting was then a piece of cake. Honestly, like people get intimidated by drafting, but it was a piece of cake. As an admitted conveyancer, though, I will say that what they ask in the exams, it's not it's not dumb or unnecessary, but making the candidates draft, because when you draft, you have to draft from scratch. So you have to literally write Be it hereby made known that, like, you have to write all of that dumb stuff down. But for me as an admitted conveyancer, I feel like that is all unnecessary. I think if they want to examine people properly, they need to do it on content, right? Which they do. They do that because they do give you scenarios in the exam, and you then need to be like, okay, what is applicable to this scenario, right? Do I do a section 41V endorsement? Do I do a section 31V endorsement? Like, because they both do have a similar function, but they're also specific to different things. So you have to then apply your mind to see, okay, what does this scenario require? Right? I just don't believe that they need to make candidates draft all the unnecessary wording. Because, guys, when you are in practice, there are systems in place. There are systems that almost every single conveyancing firm has. You go on the system, you load the information of your seller, your purchaser, purchase price, purchase sale date, all of that, and it generates it all for you. So you don't have to go and sit and type every time, be it hereby made known that on this day. You don't do that. The system generates the document for you. It is it is so much easier that way. There are certain things that you do need to do, which is your conditions. Your title conditions is something you as a conveyancer need to attend to, and your extending clauses. That is something I will say that you need to attend to, that you have to learn.
I think Tempa raised his hand. Tempa, do you have a
Oh,
question?
Yes, I do. First of all, thank you, Lapipa, for this session today. Um, Actually, I have a lot of questions, but I'll try to keep them small. Um, so I realized that in different universities, we have different electives. So at UNISA, conveyancing and notary are part of electives. Unfortunately for me, I was not able to choose these electives. However, I do have a very keen interest in property law, which I did, and also conveyancing and notaries. So some of the questions that I have for you is that can you describe your journey to becoming an attorney and conveyancer? What experiences helped you succeed? And what advice do you have for a final year student who is interested in specializing in conveyancing? One last question that I have for you is that how
mhm.
can new graduates build a strong network in property law and conveyancing field? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so my journey as an attorney and conveyancer, I'll be very honest, it was never on my cards to study law. I always wanted to be a teacher, and my mom is the one who actually forced me to study law. And I can't be mad at that because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed studying. Um, and studying law specifically was something I was very then passionate about once I did it. I will say that that is very important to this field. The passion that you need to have to be practicing in this field is very, very necessary because I'm going to be real with you all. This field does have the power to break you down, right? The things that you might encounter, the bosses that you might have, the clients that you might encounter, like these people can, the colleagues that you might even have, they can all make or break you. So you need to be very strong willed, you need to be very thick skinned, and you need to be very open and willing to learn. Because even after studying law, guys, once you do however many years of studying, whether that's 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and you think you've covered everything and you think you're a lawyer now, trust me, the minute you start your articles or the minute you start working, you realize how little you actually know, right? So if you are still on campus, my first piece of advice would be enjoy it. Enjoy your campus life, guys. Like, yes, you must work hard. You must study well. You must try and do as well as you can. But being an A student at campus does not necessarily translate to you being good in practice. So I know of a friend who graduated summa cum laude but could not find articles, even though they graduated summa cum laude, because we are under the impression that you guys are under the impression that law firms only want marks, 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 and results, results, results. That's not true. They actually want well rounded people. So there needs to be more to you as a person than just your studies. So you do as well as you can, but have passions, have hobbies, because those are the things that are actually going to carry you through in this field. Because there will be days when you come home and you want to scream and cry into your pillow, and thank goodness you will have that hobby of whatever it is, sewing or brewing coffee or whatever the hobby is. There's nothing that's dumb. Whatever your hobby may be, it will keep you sane and it will keep you grounded in this field, right? For my journey specifically, I thoroughly enjoyed my campus life. I tried to make sure I had a good balance between my studies and um, my free time. I did graduate cum laude, but I don't believe that that I don't believe that had that much of a bearing on my articles and that, you know. I do think what attracted big firms to me was all the other aspects in my life, you know. So I was a tutor while I was on campus. I did guest lecturing. I was part of the Law Students Council, and then out of campus, I had different things that I would do. I would do different community service things. I was involved in like I am involved in a very different kind of a sport. So it's these things that attracted the big firms to me. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this here is because when I was on the Law Students Council, I worked very closely to the HR departments in all the law firms. And they all told me the same thing, that they don't want to see straight A students with no personalities. If you are getting C's and B's, but you can show them that, you know, but I do this and I'm involved in this and I'm like, you know, all of these different things about you, they will look at your CV differently. You know, you might have a better chance. So find that middle ground and find who you are as a person. Because if you don't have that in this field, you're not going to make it in this field. You need to be your own person. This legal industry is not for herd mentality, if I can say that. You need to be able to have your own mind and think for yourself, right? Um, I I did my 4 years of studying. I did my 2 years of articles. I did my practical legal training. Um, I did my board exams. I got admitted as an attorney. I also very thoroughly enjoyed property law when I was on campus, but we never did anything close to conveyancing when I was on campus. Like I had no idea what conveyancing was about until I actually started working. And when I started hearing and learning more about it, it really piqued my interest. And I am more of like a bookworm. So I do love to study. So if you're going to give me an exam, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to like want to study and take up that challenge. So doing conveyancing and notary was more so like personal goals. Like I just wanted to be able to do that for myself because I wanted all three, right? I wanted to be an attorney, conveyancer, notary public. That was like a personal goal of myself. Um, and now that I have been practicing in conveyancing, I do believe that it is my calling. The studying can be challenging for board exams also, guys. I know that it's not easy. Board exams are tough, but you have to be tougher. You have to be committed to wanting to be in this field. There are people who have still not gotten admitted as attorneys because they are writing ethics for the 10th time. So you need to really want to be in this field, right? With conveyancing, it's 10 times worse. If I could say 100 times worse than board exams, I will say it's 100 times worse than board exams. The pass rate is it's appalling. Like, I don't know if you guys were aware of the most recent statistics for the conveyancing exams that were written now. I think it was in April. Um, for paper two, which is the drafting paper, I think it was 600 candidates, or somewhere between 500 and 700 candidates across South Africa wrote. Four people passed. Four people passed that exam. One person was from Gauteng.
So it's like 2%
Yeah.
passed the exam
Yeah.
out of
That's
100.
how, yeah. That is how hectic it can be, guys. So if you do want to do conveyancing and you want to do notary, I do think notary is a bit easier. It's not as hard as conveyancing. Notary is only one paper, but there's no act booklet or anything given to you in notary. So you need to know your drafting all in your head off by heart, right? But I do think that if you do want to do conveyancing, you need to be committed to that goal. When I started studying conveyancing in 2019, um, then I was studying with people who were practicing conveyancers, meaning that they did their articles in a conveyancing firm, they got admitted as an attorney, and they were working in a conveyancing department for like 8 years. And this was the 12th time they were writing the exam. But they never gave up. They never gave up because they knew, they were like, this is what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And the reality is, until you have that admission as a conveyancer, I'm going to be very realistic. The salary bump is very different, right? The salary bracket is very different. So they were very committed to making sure that they pass. So don't be under the impression that if I do have conveyancing experience, I'm going to pass the exam easier. I actually believe quite the contrary. If you approach the exam with an empty mind and with as little to no knowledge of conveyancing and learning everything for the first time, I feel you'll have a much easier or better chance at passing that exam. But you have to be committed, guys, because it's not easy. It is absolutely not easy. The one thing I will say, though, if I'm not mistaken, you guys can just find out, but a recent change that has come about is before, when we were writing conveyancing, paper one is out of 100 marks, paper two is out of 200 marks. So that's 300 in total. So before, you needed to just get 150 out of 300 across both papers to be able to pass conveyancing, right? So hypothetically, if you got 180 out of 200 in paper two and you chose not to write paper one, you technically passed because you got more than 150, right? But now, if I'm not mistaken, what has been implemented is you have to get 50% in both papers. But the first time you choose to write, you have to register for both exams, paper one and paper two. If in that sitting you pass paper one, that credit for paper one will carry for 2 years. So then you have 2 years from then where you only need to write paper two and pass paper two. You don't have to write both papers again at the same time. So I do think that they are trying these small little things to help to make it a little bit easier to pass, but I think the issue comes in people struggling to understand the content or maybe the volume of the content. Like for me, again, like I said, my personal struggle was I do not believe the content is hard to study. I just believe that the volume is insane. Like to try and remember everything, I swear you will get to a point where your brain feels numb. But it's okay. If you ever feel overwhelmed, just remember that all the current admitted conveyancers all started somewhere. We all started in the same position as you are today, right? We all we all have to start somewhere. So if this is what you want to do, then please by all means make that commitment and stick it out. Stick it out, guys. I think there was a second part to that question, and I don't know if I remember what it was. I don't want to miss it out. So please refresh my memory.
Temba, is there anything that she missed, or did she answer your question? But I think she covered
Oh,
everything.
yes, we actually covered everything. You also covered one other question that I had, but I'm not sure if you covered it in full. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to ask it anyway. So what are the legal developments or changes in property law that new conveyancers or final year students should be aware of? And if there is any interesting case law that is recent or a cornerstone case law, which case would it be? Thank you.
Okay. So that's a hard one to follow. Look, there's nothing in property law and conveyancing that's new that would technically impact any students, right? But there are things that do change. Um, I don't want to say yearly, but as and when needed, right? So we have our acts, which is our legislations that are in place, that are your guides that tell you how to handle conveyancing, right? But then you get like, as you know, right, you get specific scenarios that you can't find a section that deals with this. You can't find what's the applicable, like what law do I follow to deal with this transaction. So then there's something called registrar's circulars, right? So we have those that come out on an annual basis, biannual basis, once every 2 years, is and when needed. Registrars of deeds office will send out a circular to say, okay, if you are facing an issue with transfer duty for commercial properties that are zero rated, no, this is how you're going to go about dealing with it, or this is what the deeds office requires. So then you get those things which come every year or come out not every year necessarily, but will be there to guide you and to help you in all of those scenarios. In respect of case law, um, there is one recent case that I would actually encourage all of you to go and read up about it. It doesn't have anything to do with the property or the transfer of the property itself, but it has to do with cyber fraud and cyber crimes. And that's a recent case. I can't remember the plaintiff's name, but it was against ENS, right? Where this plaintiff took ENS to court. If you Google it, if you just put in these keywords like ENS, cyber fraud, case law,
Mm-hmm.
it should come up. I can't remember the name offhand. It went to the High Court, and the High Court ruled in the plaintiff's favor. It was subsequently then appealed, and they sat at the appeal court, and the appeal court ruled in ENS's favor. So I do have a feeling that this case is one that's going to go up to constitutional court. But it is quite an interesting case for you to learn, or for you to read, to see that conveyancing isn't just about land and property and making it go from this person's name to that person's name. There's a lot of responsibility on a conveyancer, especially because large amounts of money is also involved. So I would encourage you definitely to try and see if you can find that case and just to have a read up about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I
thank
see we
you.
have a hand.
Mhm.
Zapo.
Good evening, ma'am. I hope all is well. And thank you for such an informative session. Basically, okay, my question is based on the case. I did read the case and I found it interesting, very interesting actually. But now I have a question towards you. Also, I just want to know your points of view with regards to the specifics of the case. Like, for instance, don't you think companies or law firms or conveyancers have a duty to ensure that the client are informed about cyber crimes and mistakes are not like such the mistake within the case, the mistake or the crime was done within the email. The hackers got
Yeah.
access to the email, I think. Then they changed the banking details to just
Yeah.
yeah, just forgot the initials that they changed to, but it was
Yeah.
quite similar to the law firm's email or banking
Mm.
details, for instance. So
Yeah.
I just want to know with regards to that because the negligent was on the applicant's or the client's side, but I just want to ensure? I just want to make sure that, don't you think that the law firms or conveyancers need to ensure or inform the clients about such things?
I definitely agree. I do think though that it it should be common knowledge and public knowledge how easy it is for people to be hacked. And the other thing is that conveyancing firms, more so than any others, right? Because of the large amounts of money that happen in these transactions. We like how I practice where I'm working is when I request clients to make any payments, I tell them in that email where I am attaching our banking details, I make it clear to the client that I tell them, please do not proceed with any transfer of money until you telephonically call our offices and verify our banking details. Another thing that we've implemented at our firm is I make sure that I call all my clients the minute I receive a new instruction. I call them, have a dumb general conversation, whatever it is, just so I can familiarize myself with their voices as well. And in that way, we try in as much as we can to protect the clients and protect ourselves as well. But cyber crimes it's a real, guys, and it's hard. Like I'm not sure if you guys know of or are aware, but I did read now recently somewhere that what's it, is it LPFF? I think it's LPFF that they also got hacked, which puts almost every single law firm in this country at risk because they got hacked, which then in turn puts all those law firms' clients at risk, right? Because if they can hack into any of the law firms and hack into any of our emails, you're done for, right? And then because we also issue guarantees, another thing I do is I make sure that the bond cancellation attorney will email me their banking details of what to put on the guarantee. I will still make sure I phone and check with the person, like, please confirm with me, is this the details? I'll read out the account number, they must confirm the account number. We try and do as much as we can to make clients aware of the reality of cybercrimes and to cover ourselves as much as we can. But it's a difficult scenario. Like, I mean, our firm was hit with that also. No, it wasn't our firm, but we issued a guarantee to another firm and their emails got hacked. And so the banking details that we got from them was not correct. Someone hacked it and changed it. And we had a guarantee in place. We did release the guarantee. The guarantee got released and paid out. One of our saving graces was it was same bank to same bank. And so it was supposed to be an immediate reflection. And we told the person, I'm releasing it now. So they knew to expect it within the next, like, hypothetically 10 minutes. And when 15 minutes passed or half an hour passed and it didn't come, they phoned and they were like, it hasn't reflected what's going on. And so we were like, okay, but you gave us this details. And that's when they found out that their firm was hacked. We were lucky and thankful that we obviously contacted the bank immediately, managed to locate the money, but beyond that, I'm unfortunately I also don't know what happened. I wasn't involved in that transaction, but I know we managed to locate the money and get it allocated back to our account, paid it into the account it needed to be paid. But it happens so fast, guys. It happens so fast. It's insane. So the you can do the best that you can, but the hackers are faster, guys. It's insane. Absolutely
even
insane.
with AI. So now things have become even more difficult because they can
Yes.
forge voices, they can forge
Yeah.
imagery, they can do many
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
it's actually an
Yeah.
interesting discussion. It is.
It definitely is. So one thing that another thing that like we also try and implement in our firm as a practice is we try and make sure clients physically come to our firm to sign their transfer documents, right? Because we need originals in any case. And I make sure that when they come, they bring me in their hand a bank confirmation letter. And then in front of me, I make them sign that letter, I make them date the letter, and I make them hold it up next to their face and I take a picture of them with that bank letter. Which I know it sounds so crazy, but that's literally what I do. I even, as part of FICA, because I have clients, I obviously tell clients they need to come with their ID documents. I make sure I make a copy of their ID on that day, and then I make the client take their ID card or their ID book, hold it next to their face, and I take a picture of them holding that ID card. Like it's so that if God forbid I'm in that scenario where the client's money is gone and it's part of my transaction, whatever it is, I need to know as a lawyer first, before I'm a conveyancer, I'm an attorney. As an attorney, I need to know I am covering my ass, guys. Excuse my language, but you better cover your own butt. Because if you
You
don't cover
need
your butt,
to.
my friend. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is funny. That is funny, true.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, that's a whole other important, very important discussion that needs to be had. Um, but yeah, it's definitely an important one to have. But please do like read the case law, keep an eye on it, check how far it goes, and we'll see what transpires next from there. I don't know if I missed any other hands or if there's any other questions, anything you guys would like to know. Please don't be shy. Please don't hesitate, guys. Like I'm happy to answer any question you might have, even if it's not about conveyancing. If I can answer it, I definitely will.
Any questions, guys? Don't be shy. La Pipa doesn't bite.
I might in the next half an hour if I'm hungry, guys. Then I will. So, for those of you who don't know, Liz and I worked together where I did my articles. Liz and I worked together there. And for me, it's amazing to watch your growth, Liz, to see where you are and from where you came. And it's
Mhm.
phenomenal. So I'm so proud of you and thank you for this opportunity. Um, I really appreciate it. And I'm really, really happy to see all that you are doing. Like, I'm so
Ah,
proud of you.
thank you, Labiba. Thank you. We're also a team. We're a department.
Yes.
Use of minions. I still remember very well. We were his minions. Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Okay, so I see there are a couple of
Yeah.
questions as well on the chat. So they want to know,
Yeah.
where do you get your drive? Because you have always been like this. There's nothing new. So where do you get the
Honestly,
drive?
you have to enjoy what you are doing. I will be very honest with you guys. I did tell you I practiced in a lot of different things, so I do have a good amount of different experience under my belt. But in all of the things that I practiced, maybe not criminal law, because criminal law also I really enjoyed, and labor law I also really enjoyed. I was really good at it. But the other things I did to quite an extent feel and suffer from something that I didn't know a lot of attorneys suffer from, which is imposter syndrome. It's real, guys. Like you feel it. You really, really feel it. But now that I'm doing conveyancing, like I feel like this is my calling. Like I feel like so sure in what I'm doing, like I'm confident when someone asks me something because I'm like, I believe I can answer. And then if I know I can't answer, I know I'm passionate enough to be able to be like, oh my God, that was a good question. I want to go research. I want to go read up. I want to be able to answer the question. So making sure you enjoy what you are doing is everything. And another part of my drive is I really just wanted to always be an independent person, you know. So after you start working for a while and like you have those days where sometimes I'm just like, can I just be trophy wife, guys? That's all. I just want to be trophy wife. Like I have those days when you're
Yep,
so
we
tired
all
or it's
do
been
get
so
those
defeating.
days.
Yeah. But the independence of being your own person and being able to stick it out in this field that is cutthroat, and I'll be very honest, like I'm gonna share a little bit of personal experience. Um, it is very hard as a Muslim Indian girl in this field, because the minute people see me wearing this here, I get judged immediately. Where people believe that I don't think we should hire her, I don't think she should get articles. This one is going to get married, she's going to leave her job, she's just going to want to make babies. And I will say that I understand why these people feel this way, because my predecessors, a good amount of my predecessors who wore this or who were Muslim girls, they built that reputation. So I had a few more things to fight against, just as each of you will find. You will all find in your own way that there are a few more prejudices that you will have to face personally in this field, right? This is just my prejudice that I had to face, but you will have your own. And you need to be strong enough within yourself to want to work through it, to want to get through it, and to want to get out on the other side. And I had a matter while Liz and I were working together, where I was running my own cases at High Court, and I was running my own trials at High Court, and we were doing. I was the defendant, and this plaintiff came, and he was trying. He was like this is like an elderly male, like a bit more my senior, and he was trying to press me so hard to give in to an 80-20 settlement in his favor. And I was like, Flip, no, my friend, I read this case. I know my facts. I argued for 90-10 in our favor. And we sit in during the court tea break, and my director decided to pitch up. My director decided to come to court that day because I was at court. My colleague Kish, my colleague Yogas, my colleague Yusuf, we were all at court that day, and she decided to come. And she then met all of us at the coffee shop, and then she and I were sitting for a while longer. Did this guy not approach my boss? And he was like, I don't think your employee knows what they're doing, and you guys really need to give in to the 80-20, whatever, whatever. He tried to go over my head. And I was sitting there, and I will say that I am thankful to my ex-boss for this year, is that she never let me be, there was no undermining at all. She had my back. She looked at me and she was like, Liviva, do you know your case? Do you know the facts of your case? And then I was like, yes, I am hard and fast on this 90-10. I am not willing to let it go the other way or to give him 80-20 in his favor. And guys, the court ruled in my favor. I got 90-10 in my favor. Even though this guy tried so hard to like train wreck me or whatever it is, I stood my ground. So there will be people that will try and do that to you. You have to find the drive within yourself to push through that and to come out on the other side. But that strength is an internal thing. And it's also external in that you, even though it's a cutthroat field, guys, we colleagues. That's what we are. We are colleagues to each other. Like, I'm very firmly of the belief that whatever your earnings are, God has written it out for you. And even if I open my law firm here and there's 10 others next to me, all of our earnings is written. It's okay. We don't have to bring each other down.
That
You
is
know,
true.
I
That is true. But
I
I share your,
really
your
feel
sentiments,
mm,
Labiba. They are really out there, senior attorneys or advocates who will really try to put you down. I had that. I had that as well. Whilst I was busy with my candidate's attorney post, we had a deceased estate issue. It also
mm,
involved domestic violence as well, where they tried to lock in my client at that time, and I had to fight for her because she was almost 63. She was really an
sure,
old woman. But I do share your sentiment. You need to be strong in this field. You can never crumble. You can cry alone, it's fine, but be strong
yeah,
for your client and never cry in front of your
100%.
client. Cry alone,
Yeah.
wipe your tears, then then soldier up
Definitely.
and fight for your client. That is true. That's all we can do as
Yeah.
legal practitioners, regardless of the field that you are going
Mhm.
to venture into. Whether
100%.
you do criminal, whether you do
Yeah.
civil, whether you do deceased, whether you do conveyancing, everywhere,
Yeah.
corporate, commercial, you will always have
Yeah.
to fight because you are a fighter, you are a soldier, but with your
But
books and your
but
mount and your
yes.
brains. That's all.
Yeah.
So
But
that is
remember,
true.
for your client,
For your client,
right?
not for yourself,
And
for your client.
don't fight with each other. That's
Mm-mm.
one of my big pointers is my, like I was saying, my first job is where Liz and I worked together. I was doing articles at the time, and Liz, you came to fill in for Sisa, right, when she
Yes,
was a
yes,
TS secretary.
yes.
And till now, guys, like I meet up with those colleagues. We
We
keep
are
in
still in
contact with each
connect.
other. Exactly. That is why I'm here today. Like Liz and I also still keep in contact, and I think it's so important because you need to build friends along the way. Don't let this journey be a lonely one, right? Don't let yourself feel alone and down in the dumps. I promise you, whatever you are feeling, there is another person in this field that's feeling the same and that you can relate with. So build those relationships up and don't be afraid to help others in your field because one day you're going to need it. So when someone asks a question and you've experienced it or you think you know the answer, you can be like, listen, when I had something similar, this is what I did and help them out because when the tables are turned and you need help with something or information or whatever it is, somebody will come to your rescue as well. So make sure that, like Les says, when you cry, cry alone. Don't cry in front of your client, but you can cry with your colleagues. You
Mhm.
really can because they in this with you. They'll understand what it's like. You do get people who are more of a mindset of I need to break you down to build myself up. Identify them and stay away. As simple as
True.
that.
That is true. That is true. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Labiba, for today's session. It was a
Oh, of
very
course.
engaging session. It was very nice.
I think there's one more question. I just want to make sure I don't miss it. Someone
Oh,
asked
yes.
if you can become a conveyancing secretary with just an LLB. You can. You can do that if you are going to find a conveyancing firm who will take you on, and you can gain that experience. But there are then short courses if you'd like to do this. Short courses you can do in conveyancing to give you that conveyancing secretarial qualifications, so to say. So you can do that. I would say though that if you are going to finish your studying, then try and go into your articles or whatever it is, if it's possible. If it's not possible because finding articles is hard, then get into a law firm with whatever you can. Like how you're saying to become a conveyancing secretary as an LLB graduate, do it. If you're struggling to find articles, by all means do it because that's one foot in the door that you never had before. So you definitely can. People would usually prefer experience, but there are law firms who do look for fresh graduates because they'd like to train them. Yeah.
Yes. And also another thing, if you get articles at a firm where they are not practicing what you want at the current moment, it's not a train smash.
Um,
Yes,
Yeah.
you can still see your articles or when you are done and admitted or a year or two or whatever. Therefore, you can
Mhm.
still look into those specific fields. So don't limit yourself based on
Yes.
interest. Your dream will
Yes.
find you,
Articles is
will never
hard.
pass you. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Finding
is there
articles is
any
tough.
question, guys? Is there any questions? Questions or question? No, I think everybody is good, is hungry. We still haven't ate our dinner or supper, so we just want to end this thing. But thank you so much, Lapipa, for coming through, and also thank
Right.
you
It's
to
a
the
pleasure.
students for coming through to the session as well. I hope it was an insightful session and you had fun because I also had fun and Labiba had fun.
For sure.
Um, yes, so hence she wanted to be a teacher because we all learned so much today.
I'm
So
so glad.
without
So if you guys have any questions that you guys think of or whatever it is, Liz, if you're okay, maybe they can share it with you and you can WhatsApp it to me. I'm more than happy to try and answer it. I can maybe send you guys voice notes, or if you guys all have enough questions and you want to do another session at some point, I'm so happy to be helping in any way possible.
Okay, no problem. We'll do that. Thank you guys for coming through. And have a great evening. And yeah, goodbye.
Thanks, sis. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.